Welcome, everyone. This is episode 45 of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. It is Tuesday, May 15th. We are in that kind of month away from E3 period of time here, so it's getting to be springtime, at least in my neck of the woods, and my basement is not flooded, so I'm even more happy about that. But really, I'm just glad to be here tonight talking about games with these two gentlemen, Agasicles and Swissguard. How are you, Swissguard?
I'm doing well. I think they skipped spring where I'm at and jumped into summer. So
Right into the heat and the humidity, huh?
yeah.
All right. So tonight we will skip right over the pleasantries and we will dive into, we've got a lot of games that we can talk about because, Swiss and I have been known to kill time for quite a while in the beginning of a podcast, rambling on and on as we wait for Agasicles to get up and get the social media posts out on the E2KG network. We've got a lot of good content out there right now. There's good news articles from last week. We're getting some more leaks. We'll have some more good news next on this Thursday with E2KG in 30. Just tonight we had some trailers and some more leaks. So anyhow, but first let's talk about games that we have been playing. So this is the Game Experience show, right? Last week was a topic show, the discussion as we dive into how we engage with games. And today, this week, and in 2 weeks from now, this is the Gaming Experience show. It's our playlist. And 2 weeks ago, Agasicles was assigned a big old open world game with a questionable plot, but a lot of havoc to be had. And if I remember Prime correctly, he was curious if Far Cry 5 was the new Just Cause 3. So, Agasicles, have you had a chance to dive in a little bit to Far Cry 5? And, do we get to give you a complete on your gaming assignment, or do you need to take an incomplete as I finish out some with my students in their semesters, begging for waiting for finishing out some things during finals here? So, do you need an extension on your assignment, sir, or are you ready to report?
Well, it's very interesting that you put it that way, because I have played, about 6 hours of Far Cry 5 between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. this morning. So I would say that I definitely had to cram for this exam.
That sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, so no, I actually put the game time in. It was a little painful, but some of that was due to my own procrastination. I struggled to kind of force myself to sit down and break into playing it last night, and I was gonna do some game capture to put on my YouTube channel and on the E2KG YouTube channel, and I was like, I really don't feel like being on camera tonight and all that, and I gotta put on a clean shirt and so on and so forth. So I finally settled in to go ahead and playing about 10 o'clock last night, and then I played the first hour, getting reacclimated to the controls and whatnot because I'd laid off for a while, and then the second block, I just kind of got into the just one more turn, or I have to take down this outpost kind of thing, and I wound up putting 2 hours in, which took me up to about 2 o'clock in the morning, and then a strange quirk, which I think maybe Swiss was dealing with some similar behavior tonight potentially. So we had some big thunderstorms roll through here last night, and I lost an outlet in the garage. I lost some connectivity before that, but then I also lost an outlet in the garage and was troubleshooting that. But at any rate, more importantly, power was out in a large part of the town that I live in, so school was canceled. So I would have had drop-off duty this morning. I didn't, so I put in some additional time, probably another 2 to 2.5 hours this morning before I finally got up and headed into work. So, yeah.
So you really did cram for this, right? You stayed up, you pulled almost, not quite an all-nighter, right? Where, at least, I don't know about you, sir, but my all-nighters are not what they used to be. I can certainly feel them once that 2 o'clock hour starts to hit. So you've engaged with it enough to get a sense of the systems, to run through a little bit of story. So I'm going to go back to that question that Prime had in terms of, does it have the kind of chaotic open world You were talking about the just one more aspect of it, but in some
Yeah.
cases, that's driven by the map objectives in the very Ubisoft type of fill out your map with icons type of way. Is that's what driving you, or is it kind of the open sandbox to play in?
It's a couple things, and I'll be quite honest. I don't know that it was Prime who pulled that analogy out first. I think I dropped that analogy before the game released.
Okay. Well, there we go. Take some ownership of it.
but it's a philosophical question we've been bouncing. So for me, it's a lot of trial and error, and I think one of the reasons why I wound up doing kind of the just one more turn thing is when you are much of the way, like when I'm building a PC and I troubleshoot and I have my teeth into a problem, like I typically will wind up pulling an all-nighter because I don't want to stop troubleshooting and then go away and then come back and like, oh wait, what were the first 3 things that I tried again? You wind up repeating a lot of work and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of trial and error in trying to take down outposts. I, in my most recent stint, have elected that I don't want to hire any hired guns, which is a thing you can do in the game. So yeah, because I feel like they make taking down outposts a little too easy. It's remarkably good AI. They will actually go and do effective things, often removing the bulk of the resistance before you can even get in and do anything. I've been playing with so one of the key kind of story moments in the game is you rescue a dog and he becomes intensely loyal. This is not a large dog. This dog is not as big as my dog, but this dog takes down members of the cult like nobody's business. But there are some silly things that it does too. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so yeah, the hired guns make things a little too easy. So I was deliberately playing without them. So when you go in to take down an outpost, it's kind of like a bit of a puzzler, like a puzzle game, in that the approach that's going to tactically work the best from which direction, based on the layout of the outpost, and each of the outposts has a different layout. They're armed with different people. Sometimes you'll change a variable because you approach in a different vehicle. So with a couple outposts that I had to keep replaying, it was a lot of that. So that's why I stuck with a lot. There's one aspect of the game that I don't like that also caused this, that makes it a little Destiny-like. With Destiny, because of the inability to pause, that drove me to never bring that game up while anybody in my family was awake. Because there was always a possibility that I would be interrupted, and it's I didn't want to have the situation where I'm near the end game of a big boss battle, and then I get interrupted, and they don't understand that I can't pause the game, right? So with this, there are a couple instances where you will take down an outpost and complete a mission, and it will platform you directly into a follow-on mission. Most importantly, and I hope our call is... Saw a couple blinking icons here, so I hope that's just. I hope Windows isn't running some crazy update in the background.
No, you seem to be doing okay. I mean, you're trying to figure out how to describe Far Cry here, but you seem to be missing out.
So there was an outpost. It was an outpost I was working on this morning. It was a ton of trial and error. I finally took down the outpost. When I went and talked to the outpost leader, one of the specialists in the camp, she immediately took me on another mission, and I was worried that if I stopped it or bounced out of it, that I would lose it because it's open world. And I'm like, there's absolutely no requirement for them to allow this event to trigger again, or figuring out the triggering mechanism could be really esoteric, given that you're trying to figure out how to trigger a mission that was specifically designed as an immediate follow-on to a thing you just did. So I wound up following her along. We were trying to take down what I guess I would call it a semi-boss, and on the way there were these little encampments that we were hitting, and each encampment I was like, okay, the guy's here. Oh no. Okay, the guy's at the next one. Oh no. Okay, and that kept on going for 30 minutes. So this is a little bit of the too long a mission open world disease that Ubisoft games sometimes suffer from. But But other than that, most of the, just one more turn kind of stuff is because of me trying to figure out the puzzle of taking down a specific outpost. And then once you take down one, then it's really difficult to resist not immediately moving on to the next thing that you want to take down.
So yeah, go ahead, Swiss.
I was about to say, so you're concerned about, getting in the mission. Like, what is the save structure like? You didn't have like a fallback from saving the first game, and there's no auto save in the middle there that you could have just depended upon.
Well, so it does auto save, but it's auto save out of your control, and it's not. Despite having spent maybe 12 to 15 hours in the game, I haven't gotten a good warm fuzzy that I fully understand how the auto save works in terms of when you come back into the game where it spawns you.
Okay.
So that I feel, my perception is that if I'm in the middle of a mission, and I haven't really done a lot of like quitting out in the middle of a mission, I've been trying to drive to completing a thing, and then it's not entirely clear to me where it respawns you when you come back into the game in relation to where you ended. And there are things in mid-mission, even with in-game respawns, right? When you fail a mission and then it takes you through, a load screen to restart it. Sometimes you're in the exact same position you were. Sometimes you're a little ways away from where you were. Sometimes you're in some mystical reference spot. And sometimes you have the last weapon that you picked up, but sometimes you have the weapon before. So one of the trial and error things I was trying to work through this morning is there are, and I kind of don't like these enemies as well, there are some guys with body armor who walk around with 50 cal machine guns or lightweight machine guns. When they are in an outpost, at least for me, I have felt like those are the people that I have to take out because they seem to almost insta-kill you, or at least kill you with like 2 hits. So they're particularly dangerous. But in this one outpost, there's a little bit of weapon frenzy too, which we can talk about later maybe. But I have to kill that guy and I have to get that 50 cal, and that's the key to taking down this outpost. So at one point I killed him. I picked up the 50 cal. I was subsequently killed. When I respawned, I didn't have the 50 cal. I had the sniper rifle that I had started the mission with, which was a nice weapon, but in this, I had an actual tactical critical path to follow, which included getting that 50 cal. So yeah, I tend to like to be done with the thing so that I'm like, okay, well, when I come back in, wherever I respawn, I'm not going to be wrapped around the axle about it.
Okay, so you described, you talked about the staying up late for the troubleshooting analogy. So this is a Ubisoft game. This is a big open world game. Are you noticing how's it running? Is it stable? Are you noticing a lot of bugs and glitches, some crazy jank there?
I thought Assassin's Creed Origins from the holiday season was rock solid and stable in comparison to, what was it? Was it the 2016 Assassin's Creed releases, one of which was like horrifically buggy and low quality.
Yes, most everything is compared to the Assassin's Creed Unity glitches.
Yeah.
Yep.
So no, this is fine. The only thing I kind of don't like from a technical perspective is at least when running in 4K, there's a healthy amount of pop-in. It's in certain situations, so it's when you're on the ground and running, it's not a big deal, or walking, it's not a big deal. You're not moving fast enough to cause the system a problem. But if you're in like a helo, as you're traversing over the terrain, if you look down, you can like literally see trees pop up on the terrain as you're flying over it. Is it a big, huge problem? No, but it's just a little thing that's kind of like, I bought this high-end game written in this new engine, right, that they designed for Far Cry, I think, on a PlayStation 4 Pro, and I'm still seeing pop-in. So, but other than that, it plays wonderfully. There was one point where I thought I got a crash or a glitch because the load screen was incredibly long, and I really started getting worried that it was kind of going to be like the original Xbox and Halo load screens, where the old load forever problem, indicating that the game has actually crashed. But it came through, fortunately. So.
So do you get a performance mode or a graphics mode choice there, like in some of the PlayStation Pro games?
I don't remember. I said it when I originally bought the game, and I haven't looked at it again. Then again, you may be reminding me. So one of the frustrating things about 4K and HDR on PlayStation games, maybe even Xbox games as well, but it really kind of ticks me off that you figure everything out on the TV, you figure everything out on the PlayStation 4 Pro, and then yes, you will randomly find games that have their own individual discrete HDR switch that they don't tell you about. You have to dig around in the settings and find it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I have it on because the game does look gorgeous. I mean, it looks like a next gen console game.
You mentioned that you didn't want to use the hired guns to make it too easy. I don't recall. Did you say that there was like a difficulty level selection at the beginning or anything like that?
I don't recall there being a difficulty selection setting. I don't think there is one.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that I've heard anybody talk about it. I've heard people talk about on other podcasts about, like, the sniper person as a comp. Your associate will take out large sections of the camp. Right. But I don't know that I've heard anybody talk about a new game plus type of difficulty setting.
And then the other thing you mentioned, trial and error. This goes also to kind of like the game experience. Did it feel like you were the developers were forcing you to think your way through, and then when you achieved it, you said, the light bulb went off and you accomplished something? Or do you just feel like they structured it in an unfair way and didn't provide you enough information?
It's a little bit of both-ish. I never feel like when I failed to take down an outpost that it's due to a lack of information. I guess one of the things that bugs me about the game is its incredibly high degree of asymmetry. So when you're taking down an outpost, it is a 360-degree problem in terms of where enemies may come from, depending on the geographic layout of the outpost. So a lot of the ones that I've struggled with, it's been here. I'm facing the camp. I think I've got every possible threat within my field of vision. The people who wind up taking me out are people who came by in a truck, right? Who were not an original part of the tactical problem, right? But entered the fray unbeknownst to me. And I'm not. Maybe I feel like I don't necessarily have all of the audio cues that I want. But no, most of the time I feel it's pretty tactically rewarding. Taking down the marina, which was a thing that I did this morning. I was like, so I intuitively felt I should take the guys out on the boat first, so I wouldn't get any assaults from the shoreline. That turned out not to be the best thing to do. I spent a lot of time trying to make an amphibious assault myself. That turned out not to be well. A landside assault turned out to be better. There's a lot of in that position. There's a lot of when they have very heavy guns. The best thing to do is to get in very close with smaller caliber weapons, and constantly run around the camp and change position and change their tactical problem. So it's pretty rewarding trying to decompose all that stuff and get through it.
All right. So my final question for you is this a game that will crack your rotation over the course of the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to Destiny to it. I am probably going to spend 2 hours on it tonight after we get off the podcast, which breaks my plan and schedule. But I'm not drinking a ton of coffee in the evenings anymore, but I am tonight, and I figure I'll go ahead and expend that fuel playing a couple more hours of Far Cry 5. But yeah, it has the potential that when it does pop up in my rotation, that it may be something that I just want to dedicate 6 to 10 hours to, rather than play 2 hours of it and then rotate to another thing. So I know we want to move on. I guess I just want to try and quickly just cover 3 negatives. So I am happy about the game. There's some goofy, friendly AI stuff like the dog Boomer. And these are things that severely suspend disbelief from my perspective. The dog is really great in combat, but it doesn't make sense to me that the dog cannot hop in a vehicle with you. So I get in a helo, right? I get in a truck, and it doesn't make sense to me that the dog doesn't get up in the truck with me. The dog somehow keeps up with the truck, despite me driving across country at like 60 miles per hour. And worse, the dog's path following sometimes will cause it to run in front of the truck, so close to it that I can't see him that when he's going to do it, and I have hit the dog before. I have flown cross country in a helicopter, helicopters and planes are great for covering a lot of distance and repositioning and getting to an objective without having to deal with everything in between. The dog somehow keeps up and shows up at the camp on the other end of the transit, instead of just hopping in the helo with me or whatever. So there's that. The other thing that suspends disbelief for me is the swimming physics model doesn't seem to take current into account. If you're sitting still, the current will push you. But I swam upriver last night as quickly as I swam downriver, which just kind of took me out of the whole thing. And then, like I said this morning, the asymmetry of it, the armored guys seem a little imbalanced. It seemed like they're a little too powerful. I think those are mostly the big things. The last thing I'll say about this game is, I think Swiss will agree with me. I think one of our biggest problems with open world games is the transit. In my personal life, one of my big things is like I can't stand being in the car going somewhere and not doing anything but going somewhere. I always want to hurry up and get to the other end and do my activity. I hate kind of the same thing in open world. I hate the going somewhere. But I will say, and it's a game you have to learn how to manage this activity, but there's a lot of stuff to do, see, intercept, along the way. I've had to learn how to kind of bunny hop my objectives on my way to a big outpost to take down. It's probably by far the best open world game in terms of stuff to do when you're just transiting from point A to point B.
Neat. That's good. I mean, I'm thinking about the times I've dove back into Assassin's Creed Origin over the last couple months here, and that idea of transit there, especially on horseback or camel, right, is but not necessarily the fastest compared to a helo. So, but I think you're right that there's ways that games can design an engaging world to discover as you're kind of moving around in that world. So, and I think Swiss, I'm going to use that as a segue into yours, because you've got 3 different games here that any one of them could be, could tie into that in terms of interesting things to see and think about when you're in transit. But first, I want to go to a game that Agasicles did kind of bounce off of here, which is Monster Hunter World, right? So that is one where you're definitely following or hunting down a monster, but you may also discover other clues and side quests along the way. So, is this the first time that you've dove into it, or are you picking it back up?
This is the first time I've dove into it, and I will say that, I mean, I gotta say I was from a distance somewhat interested, but it was never an interest enough for me to substitute it with my normal backlog. I did not intend to put this in my backlog, but when I was at GameStop a couple of weeks ago, my son saw an advertisement for it, and he looked like he was into it, and my brother-in-law had picked it up. So when my brother-in-law kind of finished playing with it, he let us borrow it. So I did.
So you're not playing with your brother-in-law. You're playing your brother-in-law's copy.
With my son. So there's a couple of layers here. One is, I'd never played a Monster Hunter game before, so this is kind of my first taste of it, and I was eager enough to experience it because I was like, well, it's something we could talk about on the show. And the second layer is trying to play Monster Hunter World with my 7-year-old son, who, is impatient. And there were some things about the game where I'm like, dude, let's compare these weapons. And he's just like, I do that when I want to get in the game. I want to fight some monsters. And so there was a few layers there, but my overall impression was that I'm not a fan of Monster Hunter World. So you're glad
that you just borrowed it then.
Yeah. I'm
also glad to hear validation that it's not just me.
So is it the mechanics, or is it what is causing you to shy away from it?
The biggest thing is, I guess I'm just not into grinding as a end in and of itself. And so the game starts, and you introduce your character, and this was the first hint that my son was not going to, like, he still wants to play it. He still likes fighting the monsters, but you know, a lot of times kids can just like form a micro game within the game and be totally happy with it. So he just likes running around fighting the monsters. But the first thing you can do is design your character a la a normal RPG. And so he's like looking on his eyes and changing the eyebrows and then changing the hair. And then 5 minutes in, he's like, this is dumb. and he just didn't want to do it. So we just picked a stock character and went on. And then it does like the shipwreck, and you're going to a new world, and you get there and they're like, well, we're trying to set up base camp, and there's no overarching story. You have a partner and they just refer to her as like the handler. Like she just gives you the quests kind of and helps you out. And you know, you're anonymous for the most effectively. And there was just no hook for me. And I didn't feel like I was exploring some new landscape or anything. And there was no, like, there was no payoff for me. Like, and the monsters were cool. You know, hunting them was somewhat interesting because it's not like you go there and like you're in the area and you fight. They're running all over the map and you got to continue to pursue them. That was kind of neat. It drew me in, but trying to navigate the map and everything with my son was a little bit of a difficulty because I'm trying to explain to him, and I know he can do it because he did it on Breath of the Wild. He knows how to use a mini map, but for some reason this time it was just not functioning. There was like a roadblock there, and so we're trying to go up here, go over there, like we need to go to the right, and he was having difficulty with the terrain in the game and comparing that with the map. So in Zelda, it's a lot more, I don't want to say level because there are hills and mountains and stuff, but it's a lot easier to translate on your head. I got to go here, and the map was more intricate. So, and that's just an age thing. But I guess for me, the biggest thing was that it doesn't excite me to fight a monster, collect the parts, go back to base, craft some better stuff, and then go back and fight some more monsters. That's not a hook for me.
Okay, so I've got a game for your son then, because it's something that I've been playing. Is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on the Switch. So I've played it before, right? This is the remake of the Wii U game, but this is the Funky Kong version, right? So this is the ability to almost kind of flutter jump with Funky Kong and his surfboard as you kind of it slows your descent. It's almost like a Kirby, and then you also get additional hearts. So I've been playing it. I played it originally on the Wii U. I played it with my sons, so this is a good piece there. But the Funky Kong mode is definitely more forgiving. The normal game is pretty punishing as a platformer, and it does some nice things. It's not an easy mode where you can't get hurt, right? But it forces you to jump, but it gives you just like almost like Celeste, where it had the ability to add some additional assists if you wanted them, right? You can play the normal game as Donkey Kong or Diddy or everybody else, or if you want those assists, they're there. I think one of the other nice things that it does is, there's always different Kong letters and puzzle pieces and little hidden things in those Donkey Kong Country games. And with Funky Kong, you don't have to do a perfect run to get them, right? If you get 2 of the letters and then die, you can restart the level and you'll still have those 2 letters and you can just get the next ones. Or you can finish the whole level with 3 letters and come back and pick up the last one. And so it just makes it a little more forgiving and a little more accessible for, let's say, a 7-year-old or an elderly gentleman like myself. So it works both ways in terms of that. So that's one of the games that I've been playing.
So is the Funky Kong the only difference? We also have Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, and I want to say, just because it's a platformer, he might have beaten that game, to be perfectly honest with you, on the Wii U. But I have other kids that would like the Funky Kong mode, so I didn't realize that they had made that change. I kind of just completely ignored the game because I was like, I already got this. I'm not gonna worry about picking it up again for the Switch. Was there any other enhancements or anything that you noticed?
No, not at all. I mean, not even. I mean, it runs really nice. It's got a locked frame rate. It looks really nice in 1080p. That looks good on the screen, the handheld. But no, I don't know that there's not any other functional changes to gameplay except for the Funky Kong mode. So
this was a relatively quiet release of this title. Is this so? It's a remake of a Wii U game, but in terms of analogs to the 2017 release structure for the Switch, is this the equivalent of like the big monthly game first party from the Switch?
So this month is kind of a goofy one for the Switch. That you've got 2 Wii U re-releases. That you get Donkey Kong at the beginning of the month, and then at the end of this week you get Hyrule Warriors, the definitive edition, which collects all the DLC. So they're really kind of, and then next month in June you get Captain Toad. So I mean, I don't think it is ending up with the same type of fanfare that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did. And in some ways it's because there's probably more choices out on the system, but also because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe ends up collecting a little bit of everything in terms of its DLC, where in this case it is a soft release. It's for people who maybe haven't played it before because it doesn't really add a whole lot, but it also, I think the game design is beautiful. I mean, as a platformer, it's really solid. It's fun. And the fact that the Switch has already outsold the Wii's entire lifetime sales means that the built-in install base for this is already greater than what it was when this was released originally.
Yeah, I think Kirby Star Allies would have been the last, what I would kind of refer to as the tentpole release, and that was back in March. But I don't think they've announced Yoshi yet, so it's gonna. These are kind of the. I forgot how we referred to them last year, but the little oases of first party things, I think is low hanging fruit for them, and has it like DB alluded to, a nice profit potential given the install base and the relative ease of porting and development, I think.
Okay, so Agasicles, you have, as you have fully admitted that you have been cramming for Far Cry, that means that you've spent your gaming time this past week or two doing some other stuff. So what else have you been playing that's kept you, that's given you a reason to not get into your assignment?
Yeah, 2 things really quickly that have been flittering about. So Greylock 34901, which is our old founder of one of the podcasts we were on, and our DNA definitely goes back through that lineage. And I have been working to try and get a VR show going for both of our networks. So I have been playing a healthy amount of Rec Room Paintball, which is so it's Rec Room is the game, which is a free title available on Steam and PlayStation. I'm not sure if it's available anywhere else. Or on other platforms, but it's free. It has a lot of kind of activities in it. I almost hesitate to call them games. There are a lot of VR activities, but they are more gamey activities than like a lot of the VR experience games that are out there. So Gray and I have been playing a lot of paintball and laser tag, which are essentially first-person shooters in VR, getting a little better, figuring out the systems a little better, weapon mechanics. I finally figured out last Sunday when he and I have been doing our demo runs at the VR show, how to effectively fire the sniper rifle with the Windows mixed reality controllers, without because the triggers are on the front of the controller. When you pull them, much like a real weapon, it has a tendency to force the thing down, which I was trained to not how to do that with an actual firearm. I seem to struggle with doing that with a Windows mixed reality controller. So I'm playing a lot of Rec Room Paintball, and then also Borderlands, which was kind of my final test game for a mini gaming keyboard that I had under review for Gearworks.com, my tech blog, and getting back immersed into the gun porn of Borderlands.
So this Borderlands 1, this is the one that Prime played a couple months ago for his assignment?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So have there been graphical passes on that, playing it on the PC to bring it up?
It is,
or is it...
It is 4K, so that was the big jump that has been patched in. Other than that, it's I'm sure that there's been some additional texture maps, but yeah, it has gotten better in graphical fidelity over time. So, but yeah, that's pretty much been it. So, Swiss, you have also gone back in the Wayback Machine to touch on an earlier PC title. Some of this begins a lot of questioning that I'll continue into your plays picks for this week. So you went back to experience The Witcher. Is this a game that you've played before and you were going back to try it with another character, or is this just a classic that you've never gotten around to?
It's a classic I've never gotten around to. And I picked it up on a Steam sale like 4 years ago. I think I actually got The Witcher and The Witcher 2 for like $5. So at the time it was a great deal, but now that they're giving The Witcher away for free on GOG, it's not such a great deal. But yeah, so the other thing that I forgot to put in the agenda is I finally got my graphics card for the build that I had started. And now that I have a like modern card in my rig, I'm kind of a little bit more eager to play with my Steam library. And
so what card did you get, since we're here and talking?
A GTX 1080. So not the top of the line, but the 1080 is actually, for whatever reason, this month fell down to MSRP levels, and Agasicles put in a call out on our chat client, and I did some, 3-card Monty with my bills, and I was able to come up with the cash to buy the card.
So just wait a minute though. I want to make this point that you get a 1080, which is pretty much close to the top of the line, and you go back to the original Witcher, not the Witcher 3 in 4K.
Right.
So tell me this logic.
You're absolutely correct. I got my 1080 card, and I got my LG something 27-inch 4K monitor. So I'm in 4K, and I play The Witcher 1. I did boot it up prior to my card and after my card, so I could see the before and after, and it does look nice. But this is an example of my OCD nature in that I cannot start The Witcher 3, which is also in my Steam library. I bought that like 2 years ago, and I was waiting to upgrade all my stuff before I played that. It's in my Steam library. I can't play Witcher 3 before I at least try Witcher 1 and Witcher 2. I don't know how long I'm going to go. I'm going to do a little bit. I want to get introduced to characters, experience the world, feel the gameplay, and then I might move on to Witcher 3. If it enraptures me, I will stick with The Witcher 1. But that is why I upgraded to 4K and played a game from 2008. This is also a little bit of foreshadowing for my Swiss Plays segment. Okay, I will redeem myself. But
DB, this is just a matter of playing all of your starters in preseason. Right?
Yeah, right? Like, just toss them all in there.
You bring a very large hammer to defeat a foe that you are completely aware that you can defeat, simply to enjoy your feeling of power. I completely understand it.
Well, right, but think about this though. At one point in time, I can remember these discussions where the original Witcher was a hog, right? I mean, it tested your rig. It could be graphic intensive, and not so much 10 years later, but at one point in time, it's like going back to run Crisis, right? Like there are some games that had that kind of stigma.
The mystique. Yeah.
Yes, there we go. That's a better word than stigma.
But Crisis was one of those games that over like 3 generations of video cards, right? You kept going back to it to run it, and it was kind of like I got you now, right? Which is, I mean, we talked last weekend about like, how we play and what drives us towards completions and are continuously going back to games. And as a PC gamer, I know that's one of the things I love, having a graphically intense game in a generation of graphics cards, and getting it to where it performs okay, but then also knowing that I'm going to keep this game in my library, and when the next power band becomes available, I'm going to go back and play this game, and get it to a point where eventually I can crank up all the settings. So I get it. I feel you.
Yeah, and as far as the gameplay, I'm not far enough into it to really say, but it's a little different. It's got this little timing aspect to it. That's unique, but we'll see. I've basically just kind of started playing through the tutorial. I have not logged a lot of time into it yet, so I will continue to chip away at that until it bores me, or like you said, I want to move up. I want to get within the last decade.
So did you play anything else with your new card and your shiny your new model? Take it around the block, or you just kind of put it back in the garage and put it under the tarp?
Not yet. Not yet. I like seeing you guys in 4K, but
that's a scary prospect right there. Anyhow, so we're going to move on. We've got about 5 minutes left here in the show, so I'm going to just toss a game out here, going from an old graphics to and a big rig to a small little game. So I have been playing on a nightly basis for the last week or so a mobile game, Paladins Strike. So Paladins is a free-to-play kind of hero shooter, 5v5 on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Actually, just earlier last week, Paladins came out of beta event finally, and so there's a couple sales going on the PlayStation for that in terms of bundles, but it's out there, it's free to play. Paladin Strike came out around the same time, so they did some nice corporate synergy there of putting both out. And Paladin Strike uses the same characters with different skill sets, right? You've got a frontline character, a healer, you got a tank, a healer, you've got kind of your DPS character, and so you've got some of those classic roles, and it is a 5v5 kind of a MOBA, I guess, not quite a MOBA, right? So you are getting to it's in third person, it's top down. It feels like a RTS aspect in terms of the way that you control, but the shooting is direct, and so you aim and you release, but it is 5v5. It's objective based. You're pushing a payload, or you're summoning things to destroy another person's base, and it runs pretty well. And it's actually a lot of fun on a mobile platform. And I bring it up in this conversation in part because it's eating up my nighttime and taking away other portable games that I might be playing, like the Switch. But there's also been some rumors that Paladins may be coming to the Switch. There's some data mining out there. And so the question is it the first-person shooter aspect of the game for the Switch, or is it this kind of third-person mobile port, which the Switch has been guilty of getting some other things in a mobile port as well? So in a couple weeks, we'll see if I'm still playing it, but I will say that I've played it enough over the first week here that I plunked down some money to unlock a few more heroes, to have a couple from each class, and felt like that was my contribution to the developer in terms of putting together something that runs pretty well. So that's Paladin Strike on iOS and Android. We are getting close here, so let's talk about your assignment, Swiss. So you've teased it a little bit in terms of going back to your PC roots. So what are your 3 games that you want us to choose for you?
Yes. So I feel like a little strategy, and I want to actually play on my new graphics card. So my selections are, first one is BattleTech, the new strategy game from I think Paradox is the publisher, where it's pretty much a turn-based, like, tactical, moving your mechs around, really get into the strategy is important. It's a deep game. It's not like an arcade action title. So BattleTech, futuristic mech strategy game. The next game is Homeworld, the remastered collection. And I believe I had Homeworld on PC like back in the day. I don't recall playing it that much due to life. I don't know. But it's been something that I've wanted to play, and I know Agasicles has been an ardent supporter of the title for quite some time. So I put that in my list to pick up. And then the last one, I wanted to find another title that was PC strategy. And I went on Steam and attempted to use Steam to discover, as much as that would cringe, Agasicles. But I actually found a game that came out recently called God, I can't even remember the title.
Frostpunk.
Frostpunk. I was like, I must say Frostbite, but then it's not.
It's not an EA engine game, huh?
Yeah. So I just want to check. So you discovered this game entirely via Steam, so you had no like podcast cues or anything to go looking for it.
I think I need to start adjusting the sites that I hit, because I think I exclude too many PC games is what it boils down to. I think the normal sites that I hit are console heavy, and now that I actually have a PC capable, well, I mean, it would have been capable before, but that I actually want to play on, I need to get some more PC Master Race type content. So I went on and just kind of did this, found the game, then went out and read some reviews, and it was like, okay. And it's basically a city builder survival hybrid game where it's the post-apocalypse, the world's frozen, and you have this one little city and coal like factory thing, and you got to build up your city and keep your people alive, and have to do a bunch of morally gray choices. Do you want to send the children into the coal mines, or it'll hurt the children, or everybody freezes to death, that type of thing. So I'm a little skeptical of that, just because I don't want to virtually harm children, but it is also a very intriguing game experience. So those were my 3 picks. Both BattleTech and Frostpunk came out, I think, within the last month. So
okay, Agasicles, so you are up first. What is your pick for this?
So first of all, I want to comment that there would be merit in picking any of these games. BattleTech has a very long lineage and history. This is, if listeners and viewers aren't clear, BattleTech is the larger universe that the MechWarrior series is based in and comes from.
There's a pen and paper strategy. Like, I think I had that when I was a kid, and I never found anyone to play with me.
Right. So yes, we'll have to have an episode about only children who played pen and paper RPGs by themselves, but that's another topic for another sad day. Yeah, and there's other games in this universe as well that are not solely focused on mechs. It's kind of one of the few games that worlds where it has mechs in it, but the whole story isn't just about the mechs. Like, the people who drive the tanks and the other stuff also have interesting stories. Frostpunk, I heard about on a Game Informer episode of the Game Informer show, and it's incredibly interesting, very despair-inducing, but great merit to it as well. One of the more solid PC gaming releases for this year. However, I am going to pick my selection for Swiss for him to play Homeworld Remastered. One, because I have the game, and so that provides me an opportunity to perhaps get together with him and do some multiplayer. It is also showing up in my VR library inside Steam VR, so I don't know what that's about. So maybe we'll get a chance to explore that together. But great story. I think it gives him a forward path potentially also if he plays Homeworld Remastered, which I think has Homeworld 1 and 2 in it, may also provide a path for him to platform over and then play the more recent release, Homeworld Deserts of Carrick, which is a prequel to the Homeworld series. It has a lot of interesting lore as well.
Right. That's like, but the interesting thing about that game is it's like a ground-based game, whereas Homeworld is in the space, right?
It's ish. It's you will see the bridge from ground-based combat to the type of combat you play on PC. It's ground-based combat, but it's not like it's been staged before. And I think in particular, Deserts of Karak, if you platform over to start playing that at some point in the future, will give your GTX 1080 a decent challenge. You'll be happy with its output, particularly on a 4K monitor.
All right. Sorry, gentlemen. I was diving through my humble bundle last year or so to see if I had any one of these games, because I obviously I've heard of all of them. I knew about Frostpunk as well through a couple other podcasts, through Waypoint Radio and a couple others. So again, nice choices, right? I mean, this takes us down a path that we don't normally end up talking about. We don't necessarily get into the crunchy pre-C crowd until Agasicles comes out with his wheel and pedal reviews, and we get some discussion there. So I am going to, given the kind of legacy that you have and the story aspect from what I've heard, I'm interested to hear about BattleTech and to hear where that goes and how that plays out. Does that follow up with some of your memories? Does that dive in? I have heard people talk about it in terms of kind of the unforgivingness of it, so I'll be interested there as well. So that gives us a split vote, which means we need to turn to our third colleague here, or fourth colleague who is not with us tonight, which is Osiris Prime. And I believe Osiris has contacted both Agasicles and myself to give us a justification. So I have his vote, but Agasicles, do you have any of his thoughts on why he chose what he did?
I don't think I had his rationale. I just had what his pick was.
Okay, yes. And so his pick is, it does break the tie and doesn't give us a three-way, which is good. He also chose BattleTech. So Swiss, you are diving into your mech heritage here and seeing what you can make of it.
Yep. And when I report back, I may or may not discuss having designed my own mech and drew it and never used it on the field of battle. But
well, then you just need to bring your son along so he can design the mech, get bored in 5 minutes, and then just play the game.
That's true. That I'm quite certain he has seen me watch the trailer. So he has actually seen the trailer, and I explained it in terms of Mario Rabbids to him. So he might be into it, but we'll see.
So it's very interesting. So first of all, Swiss, which version do you have? Did you buy the digital deluxe edition with the extra content?
I have not bought anything yet.
I haven't bought anything yet. Okay, so what I find incredibly interesting on here is it says it's cross-platform.
I thought it was only PC.
I thought so too. I don't know what other platform it's out on, but I will be looking that up while DB prepares to carry us out.
Huh. Well, that will be interesting as well. I've only heard of it on PC, but maybe that's planned for other pieces. Who knows?
Maybe somebody checked a weird box and didn't know they were doing that.
That could be as well.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, gentlemen, we have made it past our 45-minute mark, and we have got in before we hit the hour mark, so we are doing just fine tonight. Agasicles, thank you for the cramming session on Far Cry 5. It's been a while since it kind of came out and it got a nice bump in terms of some press coverage, but has kind of died off, but it is an Ubisoft game, which means it will end up getting some good sales, and people are going to be able to start picking it up relatively cheap. So it may be a good kind of summertime game to pass some time. So Swiss, do you have anything else to take us out on, or any other final thoughts before we wrap up here? It looked like you were starting to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say that it is cross-platform with GOG. Steam and GOG are cross-platform now.
Ah.
So I don't accept that as a definition of crowdfunding.
Yeah, that's stretching it a little bit. I would only add that, yes, I did buy my GTX 1080. I got an Asus, and this month, part of the reason why I went ahead and pulled the trigger was because you can get, like, depending on the card you can get $10 to $30 a mail-in rebate. So in like 2 months, I'm going to get a $20 gift card, but it helped a little bit. So
It justified it, at least, right? In your head, it made a whole lot of sense. So, well, gentlemen, I want to pitch an idea for another discussion topic down the line here. Is I picked up a 4K TV in the last week. Actually, I picked up 2 of them, and there's a story behind that, but not at this time of night. So now that you've got some 4K monitors, and we've got a couple of us with some 4K and some PS4 Pros and Xbox X's, I'd like to have a discussion about gaming in 4K, because I've got some mixed emotions about that. But that is a good content and a good topic for another time. So this Thursday, gentlemen, we've got E2KG in 30. We've got a lot of gaming news. We have not gone dark before we get into E3 yet. We've got a little bit before the Memorial Day holiday, so hopefully we get a few more leaks out of here. And on the E2KG network, we've been starting to talk about what our E3 coverage will look like. Last year, we had multiple podcasts on each night of press conferences and then a wrap-up show at the end of E3. We're also going to be planning on at least 1, potentially 2 pre-E3 wow, that's fun to say. Pre-E3 shows to give some predictions and approximations and guesstimates in terms of what we may be seeing and what we hope to see. So, gentlemen, thank you, Agasicles, for manning the social media, and Swiss Guard, thank you for picking up a nice 4K card to run your podcast and your 1998 game in. Otherwise, we will see us all back on the E2KG network on Thursday and again next Tuesday for Enough to Keep Going. So until then, we hope we're enough to keep you going. Good night.